So welcome everyone, good morning to today's webinar. Today we're going to be running through the A2K Revit MEP template and the Fabrication Database solution. So Brendan Upton's my name. I'm the MEP consultant here at A2K. We'll be presenting for you, and alongside me I've got Dave Mangum, who many of you I'm sure will know as our fabrication expert and senior consultant in the fabrication area. He's going to be presenting alongside me this morning as well.
Good morning all.
All right, so before we jump into the webinar, I just want to go through a little bit about A2K just quickly. A2K Technologies plays a vital role in helping our customers reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as consulting and training, education, upskilling, etc. Why A2K? Lots of reasons. Three very good ones there on the screen. So we've got a fairly large footprint across ANZ and into across Australia, New Zealand, and into Asia now as well. So we're partnering with global companies around the world, and they consider A2K as their business partner of choice. So we've got a lot of experience that we bring into the team across our different departments. We also partner with major softwares, with obviously Autodesk being there, but all other vendors such as Microsoft, HP, etc., as part of our technology solution stacks as well. And thirdly, customer commitment. We always strive to exceed your expectations. We like to think that we are pretty good these days at understanding your challenges and actually driving and delivering those solutions through that experience for you guys. All right, let's jump straight into the webinar. So we want to just go through a few slides here to begin with. I just want to highlight some of the new areas that we've been developing for the Revit side, first of all. So I'll take you through a few slides here and just highlight some of these new features and new content. And then we're going to jump over to Dave, who's going to talk a little bit about the fabrication side and the fabrication database and some of the exciting new features there. So in terms of the Revit template that we've developed out now in A2K, we've had a fairly large emphasis on expanding it out into all disciplines of MEP. It has always been a bit of an issue, or just a bit of a limitation, if you like, in the past, where it's been fairly mature mechanically, but the other disciplines have been a little bit somewhat limited. So we have now actively developed out the electrical and the hydraulic side of things. So from the electrical standpoint, we've got a whole new range of electrical content that we can offer now. We've got typical 3D families, a typical kit of parts that you need to start typical design projects, outlets, switches and lighting, etc. We've got things like legend sheets, 2D symbols. So we've got a whole range of electrical content coming into play. On top of that, we have previously had cable trays, conduits, and sort of the containment type items there. They are still obviously there. We have developed those a bit further as well, but they certainly haven't gone anywhere. But some of the new features that were lacking, things like legends, schematics as well, which I'll talk a little bit later in the webinar too, is another area that we're actively developing as well. Okay, to talk now a little bit about the hydraulics side, there's been some exciting developments here as well. So we've got a range of hydraulic content now available. Similar to electrical, we have legends available as starting points. Okay, we've got typical pipe type definitions, those sort of pipe types, and along with the piping systems, hydraulic piping systems that you need to deliver a typical project. It's, as I keep saying, it's a good base starting point. Okay, we are developing these out. We are continuing to develop these out further as we get feedback too, by the way. So there's always room for more, as we've always said in the past as well. Other things to highlight: standard schedules that can be used on typical projects as well. And then examples of other smart families and smart content that's in there as well. For example, on the screen there, you can see that rainwater outlet that has got smarts in it, like calculations to work out the roof areas and work out pipe sizing based off that, catchment areas and things like that. So there's smarts built into those families. Okay, moving along, just to touch a little bit on the mechanical side of things as well, and we are going to do a little bit of a demo on this a little bit later as well. But on the mechanical side, we've got everything that you would expect as we had previously, duct and pipe definitions, etc. But some of the things that we've added now, as highlighted on the screen, is working through to the fabrication and that sort of that end-to-end sort of workflow. So our mechanical systems and duct types talk seamlessly to the fabrication when they are converted. And in terms of things like, as you can see on the screen, colors and color definitions, we've started to sync these up as well. So I've got a whole range of new view filters for the coloring systems. And so for the fabrication parts, if you're using fabrication parts in Revit, you can now adopt those coloring definitions off that as well. And part of the delay of that, just to note as well, is there have been obviously some known limitations just with the out of the box Revit and how the fabrication has functioned in the previous versions of Revit. But now in the later versions of Revit, and certainly in the current, Revit 2022, these sort of filters are a lot more functional, where you couldn't add colors and things like that before. You can certainly got the ability to do that now. And with Revit 2023, very, very soon to be released as well, we'll see much more functionality coming into that piece as well. But when we do the live demo, you'll see you'll see a little bit of those colors coming through in those filters as we go. Okay, so more on that later. All right, I'll hand the mic over to Dave real quick. He's going to take us through an overview of some of the Fabrication Database new features. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks very much, Brendan. Yeah, just going to quickly run through what's available in the Fab database. Currently, we're only supporting the airside systems or services, I should say, in the fabrication aspect. We've incorporated some new services here. You can see ductboard is being picked up quite predominantly around the industry. So we've placated that with two different options there. There's Cool Duct, Kingspan product, and ALP. So you've got services for different thicknesses of the Cool Duct products, and if you've got, if you've got a router machine or you're collaborating with somebody who's got a router machine, then you can pass out from the Revit model to your fabricator, who's then able to utilize the MAJ and manufacture the ductboard products. The next slide is showing the new PVC, UPVC. So if you're doing, usually the application is for apartment blocks, etc. If you've got small beam constraints between your soffit and your ceiling, then we've got some push together UPVC products. So these can again be modeled and pass through to the estimating side if you want to do some procurement and bill of quants, which are also the scheduling aspect of the fabrication products is also exposed in the Revit environment now. I can't remember which products might have been 2020 onwards, could have been 19. But yes, you can schedule out of the Revit environment any fabrication product. So if you choose to model in fabrication within Revit using multi-point routing, then that's an option. So and the next slide is just showing you that we've actually got, we've taken the approach of using intuitive naming systems, naming conventions. So there's but there's no abbreviations here. It's fairly intuitive. So if you're taking on new onboarding new resources, then hopefully this will enable you to, your resources to understand, what to select, what's been nominated. So then they're grouped in a logical grouping with low pressure, high pressure. As you can see there, fire rated. There's a ductboard group, a clean room group, and these are all designed or configured, I should say, to if you're using a workflow, collaborative workflow with the manufacturer, to actually pick up the pertinent specification. So this removes the the requirement to know what gauge, etc., and what connectivity is required for each service. So if that's passed through to your fabricator, they should pick up that information and be able to manufacture to specification, to the Australian standard specifications. So I think we've got one more slide, Brendan. Yes, we do. That's the list of insulation that's available in the database. So we've got two groups we're offering for the industry. One is categorized under construction and one's categorized under design. Why are there two groups? There's a reason behind having two groups. There are some designers that prefer to work by airway. So the design group, when you use this insulation specification, will model per the airway, and the construction group will model per the metal. So I work with a lot of duct fabricators in the industry, and most of them are more concerned about the metal dimensions rather than the airway dimensions. But if there are any people out there that are working with designers, then they may prefer to nominate the airway side. So this will work with both design and construction. So I think that concludes the slides from myself. Brendan?
Yep. Thanks very much, Dave. So I just want to quickly run through a few things now on that similar vein in the design to fabrication options and the way that you can the workflows that you have in Revit now, before we jump into a quick demo of some of these end-to-end workflows. So on the screen there at the moment, you can see we've listed out, as it stands today, we've listed out kind of the options that you have, generally speaking, when you're working in Revit, how you can output, whether you're using straight Revit content, Revit duct, Revit pipe, whether you're using fabrication parts in Revit, or whether you're using a combination of the both. So if you kind of have a look at there, the first line there is indicating, that first sort of workflow where you might just be using Revit systems, Revit ductwork, for example. You're simply using that. You're going to annotate and detail straight onto that and issue that out as your deliverable. Okay, no fabrication involved. In brackets there, you can see we've got our RevTag tool would be incorporated in that workflow to help with the splitting and the numbering, so help with the detailing side of things. And we're going to demonstrate a little bit of that for those of you that haven't seen that workflow in a sec. The second one there is, okay, this is where we can start to bring in potentially the fabrication part. So you might start with Revit systems, Revit ductwork. You then can do a design to fab conversion, so effectively convert that Revit ductwork to the fabrication parts within Revit still. And then from there, you can annotate the fabrication ductwork in Revit, or the fabrication parts will be in Revit, and issue out from there. So with that workflow, we would then be using a combination of the fabrication optimize option for the splitting. You don't necessarily need RevTag to split the fabrication because it's already inbuilt that feature within the fabrication parts in Revit. So you'd use the fabrication optimize tool to split, but you would still potentially use or could use RevTag to do things like the numbering and other detailing tasks as well. And then thirdly is where the fabrication software specifically sort of comes in. And I'll hand the mic back over to Dave because David will be able to give some good insight on that if you want to chat around that for a minute or two, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Yeah, so there's a number of opportunities which enable you, if you're working in the Revit environment, to export your files, fabrication files, after you've converted from Revit systems to fabrication services to by nature of an MAJ, it's the file format, which enables you to pass your files across to a duct fabricator, and then they get the ability to manufacture from that file. So there's some one or two challenges that still exist in that space, but if you want to collaborate and potentially minimize the detailing required, so the benefits to leveraging fabrication in the Revit environment is that it negates the requirement to populate your model with all the pertinent fabrication data, because that data is incorporated in the MAJ file, and therefore you don't need to put things like extensions on. You can minimize your detailing to sort of elevations, duct sizes, and item numbers. So radiuses of bends, etc., will pass through to the manufacturer. I do work with many manufacturers around the country, and they would welcome with open arms the ability to collaborate in that manner. I don't see a great deal of it happening, certainly in Australia, unfortunately, which is you know, a shame really, because there's benefits from both the contractor's angle and the manufacturer's angle. So there's some efficiencies that some huge efficiencies can be gained from leveraging that workflow. I mentioned a little bit earlier that you've got the ability also in the Revit space to do multi-point routing, which is basically the same workflow. And I'm sure Brendan was going to show that, but there's a similar workflow with fabrication parts that there is with Revit systems. So you can basically click from point to point and nominate your duct sizes, and then that enables you to model directly with fabrication. So yeah, and if you've got the CAM duct product or the EST MEP product, which support the MAJ file format, which enables you to do costings and quotes from the estimating package, and also the CAM duct product will enable you to do manufacture. So that's pretty much all I've got to say on that, Brendan. So I'll pass back to you.
Good stuff. Thanks very much, Dave. Okay, so it's time. We're going to jump into a demo here. So I will just preface this with, you know, we are about to jump into live demo world. So bear with us. We're going to actually both be sharing our screens here at different times. We're going to tic-tac a little bit. So just bear with us, guys. There might be just a few pauses whilst we you know, switch screens. But with that being said, let me jump over into my Revit, which is there. Okay. Okay. All right. So on the back of what we've just sort of run through those options, this is what we want to just quickly play around with here, just to show you guys some of these workflows. So I've got some example ductwork laid out here. Some of this is Revit ductwork. Some of this is fabrication parts already. I'm going to take you through a few workflows of what we've just described, you know, converting between one and the other, annotating one or annotating the other. And I'm also going to incorporate the RevTag tool, our A2K's RevTag tool in here, to show you where that can come into play potentially as well. We won't have obviously the time to go through every feature of the tool. There's much more, and if you do want to know more, you know, reach out obviously. But I'll show you some of the sort of the high level sort of workflows here. Okay, so first of all, if we have a look at the top here, I've just got some Revit ductwork, plain Revit ductwork laid out here. Okay. So in that first scenario that we described, where we're not potentially going to go to fabrication parts, we're going to stick with just Revit. So we've modeled some Revit ductwork like I've got here. I simply just want to be able to detail this now. I want to, you know, potentially split it up. I want to annotate it. I want to number it. Okay. So this is where the RevTag tool will come into its own here. All right, I could obviously do this manually out of the box in Revit by annotating and tagging, but this is where you can gain the efficiencies using the RevTag tool to save yourself a lot of time with those tagging and detailing tasks and splitting. So first of all, let's say I want to split this ductwork up. We do have a splitting tool in RevTag. So I can click on the splitting tool and I can nominate my split length. I can nominate my gasket length, and I simply just pick the run, start point, end point. and it will split the run up accordingly. I can split that run up as well. Okay, and it will split accordingly. Okay, now that I've done that, the next thing I might want to do is detail this. Okay, keep in mind I haven't numbered this yet. Okay, I do have a label parameter here that I'm going to use as the numbering, or what you might call the item number for the Revit ductwork. I'm going to leave that blank for the moment, and you'll see that come through in question marks, and then I'll come and refill that out. So basically what I can do is I can jump up here. I've got some configurations already set in my RevTag tool here. So I've got some fabrication configurations, but in this case, what I wanted to look at is the duct configurations. So I do have this duct demo one here, where I've got the tags that I need loaded in, and I've got them positioned where I want them to be positioned. Okay, so I've saved that. If I simply now come up and choose my annotate tool on the RevTag toolbar, I get my options to first of all choose that configuration I want to use. So I want to use that duct configuration, and the specific config I want is that duct demo one. I then have the ability to choose how do I want to pick these elements. I can either pick individual elements one at a time, I can pick a run, or I can pick by rectangle. Okay, this is a newer feature. You won't see this in the earlier versions of RevTag, but the pick by rectangle is quite a quick one. Think of it like you've got a whole page, a whole layout floor plan. You can basically rectangle the whole view, and depending on what your configuration says what to tag, it'll tag those elements accordingly. Okay, so you can see it's tagged. I'll just escape out of that now. You can see it's tagged up the length, it's tagged up the item numbers. Now, as I said, the item numbers are coming in blank now because I haven't filled them out. That's okay. You can still, there's nothing stopping you from tagging them first. I can now simply go through and refill those or fill out those numbers. So jumping up quickly to show you the numbering tool, I can reset this. So let's say SA supply will be my prefix. That's fine. I might want to reset that back to counter of 1. I can change the padding here in terms of number of zeros that I see. I'll just leave it as 3. And it's important here that first of all I pick the correct category that I want, and also that I pick the right parameter. So in this case, I need this to be labeled because that's the Revit parameter that I want this to label. So then I can simply pick run, and if I simply come here and pick the start run and the end, okay, you can see that's populated out the numbers. This command is still active, so I can keep going. So I can do branches like so. Okay. Okay. And let's just number that one again. And you can see it'll take off from where we left off. So where were we up here? 26, SA 26. So you can see it started at 27. Okay. There is, some of this functionality might work a little bit differently depending on how you use it. It depends how you kind of set it up as well. You can choose to ignore fitting sometimes as well, and bits and pieces like that. Okay. So that's a first quick workflow. Another workflow that we've got here just quickly is if we were doing the design to fabrication conversion. I'm just going to quickly show you that. So if I select this Revit ductwork, okay, I can choose the design to fabrication option here, which is going to convert this out. Now in Revit 2022, you get a bit more functionality here, right? You get over in the fabrication palette, you have firstly the ability to choose the service you want. You always had that. So I'm going to pick supply, low pressure supply here. But what you've also got the ability to do is if there are any inline parts, I've got a couple of, I've got a damper and a fire damper here. You do have the ability to, it will see those inline parts, and it gives you the ability to, well, firstly shows you what the Revit family is, the original, and you can choose to, if you want to replace it with one of the fabrication parts of one of the fabrication dampers. So you can see here, I've defined it as the fabrication rectangular volume control damper for that general one, and the rectangular fire damper for that one. Okay, it will retain that as well. Remember that when you do the next conversion as well. Okay, so if I click on tick to that, okay, you can see that's converted out now to fabrication parts, fabrication ductwork. coming back to what I said earlier, once it's in fabrication parts, we don't necessarily need to use the RevTag splitting tool, because inbuilt into the fabrication parts in Revit, you can select it, and you do have the optimize option here, and that will split that run up into those segments. Okay. From there, I've got some other fabrication ones here. So this is an outside air one. So from here, I can use my configuration here to tag. So if I go to my fabrication system here, and I go to, I've got a couple of ones I've been testing here for the demo, but if I go to that example fabrication configuration for tagging, you can see I've got the tags that I require. You can add as many as you want. You can hit the add symbol and add as many tags as you want. You can choose what items it is actually going to tag, and then you can choose where it's actually going to be placed in terms of its vertical, horizontal, and its X and Y offset, etc. So you've got a lot of different options there. You can also import and export these configurations as well if you weren't already aware of that. Okay, so with that, let's jump back in here and do a quick example of this. And again, it can depend on how you've got it set up as to where the tags will come in. There can sometimes be a little bit of tidy up once you've tagged it. But that's kind of, par for the course, understood. It's still a lot quicker. You'll gain a lot of efficiencies, being able to tag all that in one go and place those elements where you want them. So things like the length and the item, getting them to tag where exactly you want them, rather than having to, do it manually on Revit and having to click and place it and it goes where you don't want it. And then you've got to come back and reposition, etc. Okay. Things like the actual throat radius it's doing. Things like the connection here, and these are the extensions, they're on 0 at the moment, but just as a quick highlight, these are some of the parameters that don't actually tag out of the box with Revit Fabrication, okay? So this again is where the RevTag tool is coming into place. So not to take too much time here, but just to show you that, as well as the tagging configuration, if you jump across in here in RevTag to the fabrication properties, this is where you can map those hidden kind of, untaggable, if you like, fabrication part properties or parameters. You can map them over to your own shared parameters. So I've got some examples of shared parameters here. Once you've mapped those across, you can sync. We've got a parameter sync button here, and that will basically update those options. You can see it's populating for those that I've nominated, is populating those items there. Okay, so if I potentially grab that just as a quick example, and I adjust the part there, and I adjust the top extension to, let's say, I don't know, 50. Okay, if I now do a parameter sync, okay, and click OK, you say sync, you can see sync complete. You can see it's updated that number. Not only has it updated the tag, obviously, but it's pushed that value into the shared parameter. And it can be any shared parameter. Doesn't have to be, it's not controlled. You can have any shared parameter that you want. You can map any ones that you want through here. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. I'm conscious of time. So just one last thing I just wanted to show you in terms of those workflows, and then I'll hand it over to Dave, is converting to the MAJ. So converting to the MAJ so that Dave can then consume this potentially in EST and in CAM, okay, as a workflow. So what you can do in Revit is you can select your fabrication parts. You do have an export job file option here. That allows you to export it out to that MAJ file format that Dave mentioned earlier. Okay, so I can export that out to MAJ. Obviously, we've done this earlier. I've exported this out. So what I'll do now is I'll hand it over the controls over to Dave, and he's going to take these this run and have a look at it, take us through some EST and some CAM workflows. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it over to you, Dave. So just bear with us, guys, while we switch.
Thanks,
okay.
Brendan.
Got your screen there, Dave.
Hoping that you can see
all
my
yours.
screen.
Yep, all yours.
Cool.
Seeing it loud and clear.
Okay, so we've got I've got EST MEP open here, and as you can see, I've already opened the MAJ that Brendan exported from Revit. So there it is. Notice that the colouring persists from the Revit environment. So Brendan's filters are set up so that if he models any of this system, outside air system with Revit, it will be this color. If he switches it to fabrication, it'll be this color. If he sends the MHA to collaborate, somebody that's collaborating, it persists as this color. So it enables you to identify that it's outside air here. This is the estimating package. So because it's the estimating package, I've now got the ability to, if I wanted to really quickly look at the costs of, I just noticed it's in pounds actually. So I've just installed this. So it needs setting up for dollars, but yeah, that's, if you were in UK, that'd be £1,299. So that's, real quick, high level idea of what you can do, get some costs. These will be sort of default costs that I've plugged in, for material, etc. If you spend the time to build your database out, then you can actually get some quite robust reporting. If I flip into the CAMDUT software, so this is the manufacturing software that the manufacturers, the sheedy shops around the country use predominantly. Again, this is the supply air run that Brendan was demonstrating earlier, and the sheedy shop would get this, and basically I think I've got a process set up, so I can just hit that button there, and very quickly you'll see that I've what's called in the industry nested the job. So there's the list of the items that Brendan sent to me via the MAJ file. Just noting also that the item number persists in the MAJ. So I've got SA001 to SA031. That's what Brendan would have numbered in the Revit environment. Jumping into the nesting side, there are the nested sheets. If anybody understands about the nesting, I can actually quickly give you a quick preview of what your sheedy shops around the country would do. And imagine that's a flat sheet of metal, and that's going to be cut out on the machine and formed up to make a piece of duct. I can see that as a bend, a shoe there, and probably that could be a short straight, four-sided short straight. So that gives you a kind of a high-level idea of what you have the ability to do. And I hope that I'm mindful of the time as well. So I hope that enables you to gives you an idea that you can get some very efficient workflows within your industry, and more efficient you are, that obviously the more money theoretically you can make. So hopefully that helps. And
so that concludes the live demo, guys. So we're kind of going to wrap things up here now. We will have some time quickly for some questions in a minute. If you do have any questions, feel free to place them into the question dialogue there on your Zoom panel. We'll do our best to answer them. If we miss any, we'll obviously reach out to us and come back. But just in conclusion, guys, I just wanted to quickly just discuss a few of the things that we do have in development at the moment as we speak. So in terms of on the fabrication side, we are actually developing out a new piping database. Dave is obviously heavily involved in that, so there's some exciting stuff happening there, which we'll hopefully be able to show you in very, very soon. So that's one thing to look out for. In terms of the Revit side, a couple of quick things I just wanted to highlight. There's many things that we're developing, and as I said, we're always taking on feedback, and we've got lists of things to develop at the time. But some of the things to highlight are things like schematic views, and schematics in Revit is something that's often sometimes left out or is limited what you can do. What we're trying to do is set up some standard drafting views in the Revit template, some standard schematic drafting views, so to at least have a kit of parts there, a starting point for you to start from for all disciplines, that is. Okay, there still are some limitations in terms of the questions always asked about connecting schematics live to the model. Unfortunately, that out of the box, there's still not really any kind of workflow for that, and there's probably not going to be in the short to the midterm future, at least, if not longer. However, there are some add-ons out there that you can start to have a look at as well for the different disciplines that do some sort of connections in there. But at the very least, bringing it back to some standard views with symbols and setup templates in there, as well as what we're developing out. As well as that, we've got some additional fire services content that we're developing at the moment as well to build that part of it out. We do already have some fire content in there in terms of fire services, pipes and sprinklers, sprinkler systems, piping systems, etc. In there, but there's some additional library content as well that's coming through too. The other thing quickly, just on RevTag, again, as I said, if you do have any questions on that, if you want to see a demo of that, if you want to know more information about that, reach out, or if you're already a current user but you've got questions about the workflow, make sure you are on the latest version 5, first of all. And then if you've got any questions about that, please reach out. As you can see down the bottom there, you can also refer to a webinar we did a couple of months ago. If you go to the A2K Technologies YouTube channel, there's a library of all of the webinars recorded there. There's one called MEP Fabrication Workflows in Revit, a recent one about 2 months ago. That's got some demonstrations of the version 5 features in RevTags, a whole lot more than what I showed you there today, in terms of numbering and tagging, not just duct and containment and pipe, but also air grills and mechanical equipment and other items as well. Okay. Alrighty. With that being said, we might open it up if there are any questions quickly. I think I can see a few coming through at the moment. We've got one from Anonymous. Hi, Anonymous. Hope you're well today. For the hydraulic line type, how to do a line type with letter? Okay, that's a good question. A very common question. The short answer is still to this day, unfortunately, it's not possible that you cannot have line types in Revit with letters or characters in them as you can in AutoCAD, unfortunately. That's one that comes up all the time, particularly for hydraulic services. It's workaround still to this day, unfortunately. There are some things you can do, but there's no kind of out of the box way to have those character based or letter based line styles in Revit, unfortunately. You can add tags and things to it. There's some workarounds, but they're not ideal. But yeah, you can do it. Unfortunately, what our recommendation is to adopt just the colors and the line patterns in Revit as your line styles, and just accept that you move away from the letters. That's our advice. It's going to be the quickest, most efficient way. If you do adopt one of the workarounds, it'll work and it'll look good. Like, it can look okay for your documentation, but you'll spend a lot of time. If things need to move, you've got more things to move at a time. You've got to make sure that they stay attached, etc. And it just gets a little bit messy. All right, one more quick question on hydraulics. It looks like when connecting a hydraulic fitting at slope, how to solve the symbol not shown? Look, that's probably a bigger question, that one. There's probably some workarounds for that as well. Some of that is just the functionality of Revit with slope pipe, unfortunately, as well. But that could be something we could take offline, I think, and reach out to us on that one. I'm not sure who that's from because it's got anonymous. But if you want to reach out, that's something we can take offline, I think. Just quickly on that though, there is some in the recent versions of Revit, and this goes for electrical as well, not just hydraulic. When you've got symbols not being shown on a sloped surface, there is a always vertical from memory tick box in there that can work in that instance as well. It's something like always vertical or keep vertical, something like that in the family settings. So I've got some interest in some possible demos of RevTag. That's fine. Absolutely. Thanks, Henry. Certainly reach out, and we can certainly arrange something for you. Absolutely. This one might be one for you, Dave, or I can probably talk on it as well. But there's a one there. I don't know if you can see that. David says, "Can we use Hatch?" From Luke. Hi, Luke. Can we use Hatch on FabDuct yet? As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, David. As far as I'm aware, yes, you can do hatching, just like we had the colors, I think. Is that correct?
I don't think hatching's been enabled yet.
Okay.
It's on the roadmap, I believe. Autodesk has got that on their roadmap to enable that, because it has been heavily requested globally. So just solid fill at the moment, unfortunately, Luke. Sorry. I'll hit I'll let the Autodesk.
Let's hit them up, and we can do some more testing on that as well. But you can see the colors worked, which is promising. If they're working, then you'd hope, as Dave says, that it will come through. Another one from Henry: Will the schematic templates be customizable for company standards? Yes, they will. They'll, as with everything, there'll always be a bit of a bit of further development that would need to be done. But yes, they potentially will. You have the ability to add your own symbols, etc. It's basically like you piece them together on the line work, and it blocks out the lines. Basically, you can add your own symbols in, basically, so they're just detail items. Well, hi Billy, thanks. I think that was at you, anonymous. Thanks. Hi Billy. Okay, so that's good. With working with pipework in RevTag, can you ignore fittings like the example you showed with the ductwork? That's a good question. I'm not sure of that one off the top of my head, actually. I'd have to test that one. I have a feeling no. I'm going to say no.
I think the answer's I think it's been requested in the past historically, and it's the answer to that one is not yet.
At this stage.
It's a development request. So but it's a good question.
Have I missed any, Dave? Have you seen any questions?
We got Vipul on asking the question about transition pieces, set up, set down, bottom up, bottom down, flat on top, flat on bottom. In Revit, we have a Revit family tag. So I'm assuming that's in reference to fabrication tags. And I think it can be done. And I also think it can be done with a direction arrow as well.
I believe so, yes.
There's some, in the newer versions of Revit, I think that sort of data has been exposed, or it's been enabled. We'd have to test that one and come back.
We'd have to test that one. Yeah, I think it's the best. But potentially, yes.
Yeah, I got another question just come in, Simon. Can you put access doors and holes on fabrication parts in Revit? Yes, you can with the database that we're providing, because we've thought about that. So in fact, you can, it's specific to fittings. Straights have the ability in fabrication to automatically know where the hole is. So when you're exporting your MAJ, that comes through to your fabricator with the holes predetermined, if you've got certain configuration settings set in your database. The challenge has always been to predetermine holes, like for access doors on transitions that are going up to a VCD. We've provided some items in the database that we've sort of pre-configured with a hole in the item, which if you don't want it, you can actually zero out the data fields and it won't cut the part with the hole in it. And it will enable you to populate with an access panel as well. So graphically, you can actually, presentation-wise, you can show a fitting, a radius bend, a square bend, an offset, all those sort of fittings, fabrication fittings. You can position the hole on any side. You can move the hole around, so it's dynamic, and you can change the size of the hole, providing you ensure that the hole size meets the criteria of the industry standard access panels that we've provided. So the answer to that one, Sam, is yes, it can be done, and it can be done in Revit. Got another one from Jeff here just come in, and that is, can you export the files? I presume you're a manufacturer. Can you export the straight files to a coil line? Yes, there is an ability to export files directly from CamDuct to a coil line to make your standard straights. And then there's another one coming from Bill here, and that is, what's he asking? I'm trying to read this. What happens if you change your mind about who's going to manufacture your ductwork? Good question. So in Revit, you can actually bring in a different service with a different database configuration. You can't bring in a separate database, unfortunately, but you can populate that iteration theoretically with a different service exported from a different database, and it should enable you to re-optimize your straights to a different length. That's always been a challenge in the fabrication world, or in the construction contractors world, I should say, in that they don't always necessarily know who's going to be making the ductwork, and the standard straight lengths can change depending on whether you've got a coil line or you've got a plasma stroke laser machine. So that's a tricky one and a good question as well. So that's all I've got, Brendan, at my end.
That's all you got. Yeah, I haven't seen any more come through, but that's good. That's a great amount of questions. Or there might be one more. Did I see pop up there? Okay. Hi, Tide. Really sorry that I missed the piping part of the presentation. Is there anything updated from Autodesk for pipe manufacturing? No, you didn't really miss too much there. We and Dave, you can jump in on this as well. But yeah, we do have a piping database that we are developing out at the moment that will sit alongside the airside database that Dave's was talking about today. So I'm fairly sure that's where you're going. So that should help you. I don't know, Dave, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, they've done a fair bit of work in the dev side.
Right.
The new version, everybody knows that 2023 will be out in the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. They've been working hard on the rolls and the flip options with pipe work. So and drawing on grade as well. So there's some pretty cool stuff and new stuff. They've been working hard on that in the Revit environment. So if you can be using the latest and greatest, recommendation. I know it's hard in the industry because you kind of get locked in with BIM execution plans to a certain version of Revit. Of course, when 2023 comes out, Autodesk automatically drops support for 2019. So the oldest version of any product should be 2020 ideally. And the newer the version, the more the features, the better the functionality. So there's definitely some improvements been made in that space. Good question. Get to the latest version if you can do, and that will certainly give you some benefits.
All right. I don't think there's any more at this stage, Dave. That's been really good. So thanks, guys, for your questions. Appreciate it, and hopefully we've been able to answer those for you. If not, as we said, always reach out. We might, conscious of time, so we might just wrap it up there. I think is probably a good time. So just to finish up, guys, if you do want to know anything about other events and webinars and things that are coming up, please visit a2ktechnologies.com.au/events. But with that, guys, we'll say thank you very much for watching. This will be recorded, so it will be available on the YouTube channel in the coming days. Otherwise, yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much for your time this morning, guys. See you later.
Thank you.